At the coming-of-age banquet, almost all the classmates were drunk. Even girls who were usually shy and quiet got bold under the influence of alcohol and started approaching their crushes to confess. A close friend whispered to me, "Harper, why don't you go tell Matthew how you feel?" At that moment, Matthew was surrounded by people. Some were handing him love letters. Others gave him little gifts of all kinds. He politely thanked each one with a gentle smile, but turned them all down without hesitation. Then Emily, the class beauty, shyly stepped forward to confess her feelings. The entire private room was buzzing with excitement. My classmates glanced at me with quiet concern. I just smiled and quietly got up to leave. The moment I stepped out, Matthew turned down Emily. "Matthew, you're really gonna turn down the class beauty? What kind of goddess are you even looking for? Anyway, come on. Are you actually getting tired of women because of Harper?" Speaking of Harper, where is she? She was here just a little while ago during dinner. I heard she's been looking for someone to shorten her school skirt lately. Probably went to change into her battle gear. So, does that mean she's aiming to take down our Matthew tonight? Matthew held a drink in one hand and leaned against the window, hearing his buddies chatter on and on. He couldn't help but let out a sarcastic smirk. She really has what it takes. Harper's pretty. Matthew, you're seriously not even slightly interested? Yeah. Those legs long, pale and slim, and her face is adorable. I can barely handle how she smiles. If you're so overwhelmed, then why don't you just go with her tonight? Matthew's voice suddenly turned icy cold. He glanced at Harper's empty seat, then turned and left the room. Now that they're 18 and officially adults, a lot of couples or people in quiet flirty phases are all quietly aware of what's going on. Word had it that all the nearby motels and hotels were booked solid already. A few bold girls in our class even sneaked room keys to their crushes. We'd all been holding it in for too long. Everyone just wanted to let loose a little. Back when I was my old self, I'd probably be clinging to Matthew right now. I stepped onto the curb and flagged down a cab. My phone buzzed with a new WeChat message. It was Matthew who sent it. "Emily just confessed to me. Should I say yes?" That's when I realized our WeChat chat had frozen 2 months ago. The last message I sent him went unanswered. After that, I never reached out to him again. I didn't message him, so of course he wouldn't reach out first. It was kind of surprising that he reached out today, but I didn't reply, just logged out of WeChat. The moment I stepped through the school gate, WeChat started pinging with new messages nonstop. Not one was different. Every single one was a screenshot of Matthew and Emily's official announcement post. I tapped to take a look at their photo together. Matthew had his arm wrapped tightly around Emily. I didn't feel a single ripple in my heart. 3 months ago, I suddenly realized I'd ended up as the disposable secondary female character in a romance novel. Matthew was the male lead in the story, and Emily, she was the main heroine. She's also my half-sister on my father's side. Once I found out about Emily's true background, I couldn't stand her. And because I kept fighting her at every turn, it led to my entire life falling apart. In the end, Matthew had me locked up in a mental hospital and died before I turned 30, alone and broken. Honestly, I never really liked the main couple's personalities while reading the book. I've always had a soft spot for William, the male side character who didn't get much attention in the story. The author once dropped a hint that William had a girl he was fond of, but then the story fizzled out, and that clue was never followed up on. I kept wondering who he might have had feelings for all along. But a month after I ended up inside the book, I stumbled upon William's secret. That's when I finally found out who he'd been secretly in love with all this time. That night, long after evening study hall had ended, I went back to the classroom to grab my forgotten phone. But there he was, William, sitting in my seat. His phone screen was lit up, and right there on it was my photo. The classroom was so quiet that I could clearly hear his slightly heavy breathing, and the occasional clatter as his arm bumped the desk, scraping against the floor, made a sharp, grating sound. I stood frozen in place, completely flustered and at a loss. It wasn't until that moment I realized this romance novel was seriously messed up. William saw me too. But he didn't stop. When it was all over, he stood up, eyes down as he tied the drawstring on his sweatpants. Only then did he look at me again. His expression blank. Voice flat and distant. "Harper, you done staring?" I stammered for a moment before finally getting out a word. "I've seen enough." "No, I didn't see anything at all." William let out a soft chuckle. As he walked out of the classroom, he brushed past me. I caught a whiff of something crisp and woody, but at the very end, there was this odd scent lingering beneath it. My face turned hot in an instant, but William suddenly stopped dead in his tracks, turned to look at me, saying, "Matthew isn't right for you." I stared at him in surprise. "William." But he'd already turned away and started walking off, saying, "Forget it. Do whatever you want." Like I didn't say anything. William was the school's infamous ice prince. A real golden boy from Beijing, with looks that left everyone else in awe. In the girls' late-night chats, his name always came up top of the list. But he was cold and aloof by nature, always keeping to himself. He never paid attention to girls at school. Until that night, when I stumbled upon his secret. That's when I realized he had a side no one else knew about. But that secret somehow quietly sparked something warm in my heart. When I got downstairs, I called William. It took a while before he picked up. "William, what do you need?" "I'm downstairs by the classroom. The motion sensor light in the hallway's broken. It's kind of dark. And I'm scared." William didn't say anything. A few seconds later, he hung up. I leaned against the wall, dazed and still. Maybe William's also from another book. Maybe he's not into me anymore. But suddenly, footsteps echoed through the hallway. I snapped my head up and looked upward. Moonlight stretched his slender, tall figure long across the wall. In the shifting light and shadow, I only saw the sharp, defined profile of his face. His nose was high-bridged, and his jawline was crisp and smooth. Just a simple t-shirt and jogging pants. Who'd guess how toned he is underneath? I nervously clenched my palms together. But William had already stepped right up to me. "Harper, I'm here," I instinctively answered, standing up straighter. He gave a faint smile, then reached out his hand toward me. I slowly lifted my sweaty fingers and gently placed them in the palm of his hand. He didn't say a word, just closed his fingers around mine. Then he led me upstairs. William's seat was at the very back by the window. I lingered, pretending to tidy up the books in the drawer. I kept shuffling the books in and out of the drawer over and over again before finally mustering up the courage. I stood up and walked over to William's desk. He was leaning back in his chair, scrolling through his phone. When I approached, he barely glanced up, just lifted his eyes slightly. Then he locked the screen of his phone. I took a deep breath, cleared a few books from his desk, and pulled open the drawer. William raised an eyebrow. "Harper, what are you doing?" The moment the words left his lips, I straddled his lap. Young William, just shy of 19. He was the age of fiery youth. The moment I settled onto his lap, his expression changed. His thighs beneath me were firm and hot. William's Adam's apple moved sharply up and down, his jaw tensing tighter with each breath. My palms were damp with sweat, layer after layer. My heart was racing so fast it felt like it might burst right out of my chest. I snatched the phone from William's hand and set it aside. My throat felt sticky, so I turned my face slightly and coughed softly. Then, with a shy whisper, I said, "William, you don't have to keep staring at the photo just looking at it like that. I'm right here in front of you." I finally gathered enough courage to look up at him. A breeze drifted through the window, ruffling the silver moonlight into shimmering waves. The moonlight danced softly across his face, flickering, wavering, scattered and dim. The moonlight was white, but the hunger in his eyes burned like fire. I was nervous and a little afraid, but I still forced myself to hold his gaze. William's eyes slid slowly down my face, skimming over the collar of my uniform, then the waist I had tightly clenched, finally coming to rest beneath my skirt, which was cut 10 centimeters shorter. That patch of white seemed even brighter than the moonlight. I suddenly lowered my lashes, my eyes darting away in shy retreat. But William reached out and gently took hold of my wrist. His voice was deeper than usual, low and faintly husky with a hint of sensuality. "Harper, you can still get off me right now. It's not too late." First, I was a little dazed, but before long, suddenly clicked. My whole face turned red, and the back of my neck burned hot. The workout pants were only thin, and my skirt was so short. I shifted a little, feeling awkward. I wanted to pull away from the volcano about to erupt, but the hand holding my wrist suddenly tightened. "William, be gentle. My wrist hurts." I hadn't finished speaking. William suddenly leaned down and kissed me. As our breaths tangled, I heard him say something softly in my ear. "You're absolutely right. Harper, you're right here in front of me. Why would I even bother looking at photos anymore?" The deep kiss came again, overwhelming and all-consuming. My mind went completely blank. Sight, sound, everything seemed to vanish in an instant. I just kept my eyes shut, my jaw firmly held by him as he took me in deeply. I let myself be taken without resistance, fingers so weak they barely clung to his shoulders. I was on the verge of not being able to breathe when a familiar voice suddenly came from outside the door. "Pingjing, are you in there?" As the voice faded in, I heard the sound of the door creaking open. My whole body tensed up, my heart nearly stopped. "Relax. It's okay." Suddenly, William's school uniform, carrying a warm woody scent, shut out all the light. He gently pressed me against his chest, draping the uniform over me so my head and face were completely covered. "Wow, you're actually in here. I haven't seen you all evening. What are you even doing hiding in a classroom like this?" Matthew's voice drew closer, slow and steady. I wrapped my arms around William's slender waist, instinctively tightening my fingers. My whole body was trembling slightly. "Stay back." William's voice was low and flat, devoid of emotion but heavy with authority. Matthew's steps came to an abrupt halt. I felt William's hand land on my back through the uniform shirt. It brushed gently, like a quiet reassurance. "Go back first. We'll talk about it tomorrow." Matthew finally noticed what William was holding in his arms. He let out a few teasing chuckles. I get it. Well then, I'll just head out and leave you two alone." He didn't dare look too long, but still glanced back once more as he turned. The person was completely covered by the school uniform, so of course no face could be seen. But the legs peeking out from under the skirt were slender, pale, and long, really striking. They kind of reminded him of Harper's. He walked a few steps, then couldn't resist glancing back again. For no clear reason, his stomach suddenly felt uneasy, but William suddenly spoke coldly. "Want to come stand right in front of me and take a good look?" Matthew waved his hands quickly and hurried out of the classroom. Others didn't know William's background. He was the only one who knew the full story. That's why at school, he and William were relatively close. William usually kept a low profile and didn't draw attention. But Matthew knew full well he couldn't afford to mess with him. So, once outside the classroom, Matthew couldn't shake off a lingering unease. William hadn't shown up all night long. Harper had left midway and never came back. She hadn't replied to WeChat either. That kind of thing never would have happened before. Matthew scowled and stood there for a moment, then finally reached for his phone. Just as he was about to call Harper, his phone suddenly buzzed with a message. Matthew's expression flickered, and he turned on his heels, hurrying down the stairs. It wasn't until the hallway was completely quiet. William finally pulled the school uniform off me. "You're safe now. You can come out." "Oh." I sat up straight from his arms. William leaned back in the chair and looked at me. "Aren't you going down?" I lowered my eyes, avoiding his gaze, but didn't move off his lap. "William, go on." "I don't like Matthew anymore." I bit my lip hard, then finally gathered the courage to look up at him. "I mean it. Is it because of what happened with Emily?" I shook my head. "No, not really. It doesn't matter if Emily exists or not, whether they've made it official or not. I just don't like him anymore. William didn't seem to believe a word of it. He just gave a faint tug at the corner of his mouth. Got it. William. Yeah. Don't you have anything you want to say to me? The smile had vanished from his lips completely. Inside the dim classroom, his eyes holding mine were darker than the night itself. Harper. I don't care about whatever mess you and Matthew have going on. No idea what your motive is for showing up tonight. One time only. He finished speaking, grabbed my wrist, and started pushing me away from him. I let him push me off. Watched him stand up and toss on his school jacket before walking off. He didn't even glance at me as he passed by. I stayed frozen in place. Tears suddenly spilled over. Unstoppable. In this unfamiliar world, the only person who ever loved me is gone. Emily and her mom will be moving in soon, and then they'll take away everything I have now. I came to see William tonight, not for anything else, just because I like him. And I thought he liked me too. But now I realize, I must have been imagining it all. Maybe he only felt a passing urge from teenage hormones. It was all about desire, not real feelings. Harper, why are you crying? Before I even noticed, William had turned back and was standing in front of me again. I looked up suddenly, tears still clinging to my eyes, disbelief flashing across my face. The moonlight poured down, and my tear-streaked face was reflected right into his pupils. William reached out and gently wiped the tear from the corner of my eye. Why are you crying? Harper, I thought that look you gave my photo meant you liked me. And I thought the way you kissed me just now was because you liked me too. William, I guess I was just imagining things. I turned my face away, pulling back from his touch. I took a small step backward. I'm sorry. So Harper, you're crying because you thought I didn't like you? I didn't say anything. Just nodded faintly through a choked breath. William took hold of my chin and gently lifted my face again. His long fingers brushed the tears from my eyelashes. Don't cry. I turned my face away, not looking at him. Harper, I was planning to go abroad for school. But now, I've changed my mind. Let's go to Beijing together. William, through blurry eyes, he leaned down and kissed me. Kissing you is obviously because I like you. He gently kissed away the tear at the corner of my eye. Harper, how could you be so clueless? All those emotions that had sunk so low they felt like dust. Suddenly, tiny blossoms began to bloom. I was so dizzy from his kiss my legs felt weak. I clutched his hoodie with both hands, and between breaths, I whispered, when did you start liking me? William didn't answer. Instead, he lifted me up and set me on the desk. Focus on kissing. Harper. And this dress. It's only for dates with me. During the first month of summer break, William and I met almost every day in secret. I haven't told anyone about us yet. I just don't want the Sue family using this to get closer to William. Emily and her mother will be brought back to the Sue family soon. Before long, this troublesome daughter of my first wife, me, will lose my father's favor more and more. And eventually, I'll be kicked out of the Sue family house. The Harper in the book suffered terribly over this. Back then, she had been Oliver's favorite daughter. But after Emily came into the Sue family, she gradually stole Oliver's affection. That's why I've been going out of my way to oppose Emily. But I really want to cut ties with the Sue family as soon as possible. I'm an adult now, so I can inherit the inheritance Mom left me. It'll be more than enough to live comfortably and freely for the rest of my life. That way, I won't have to worry about the Sue family causing trouble for William anymore. William was a bit unhappy, but he finally gave in after I begged him for ages. He agreed in the end. The day our class rep organized another get-together, a friend told me Emily and Matthew had fought again and broken up. It wasn't all that surprising. As the main couple, they'd broken up and gotten back together so many times it was like a drama full of love and heartbreak. That was just how things were for them. Harper, I heard Matthew asked about you the other day. What did he ask? He wanted to know what you've been up to lately, and which school you applied to. Oh, Harper, I just can't help but feel Matthew still has some feelings for you. If he came to confess his love to you, Would you say yes? No. I was about to say I haven't liked Matthew for a long time. But before I could speak, Matthew suddenly stood up and walked over to my side. He pulled out the chair and sat down right beside me. Harper, what have you been up to these past few days? I haven't seen you at all. He reached out and rested his hand on the back of my chair. It was a really intimate, almost flirtatious move. Suddenly, I thought maybe the Harper in the book was led astray by Matthew's kind of boundaryless behavior. She just kept getting deeper and deeper, until she ended up in a corner with no way out. The side character really is just a side character. When Emily and Matthew had a fight, he came straight to me, deliberately acting flirty to needle Emily. Then they made up, and I got kicked aside like an old shoe. I'm such a fool for putting myself in that kind of mess. I got up and moved to the seat beside me. Matthew looked clearly taken aback. Back then, I'd have already been all over him from just a little hint like that. Wouldn't stop talking and clinging on. Harper, what's going on with you lately? Nothing much. I stared at him with a flat expression. I just figured you've got a girlfriend now, so we should keep some distance. Matthew looked straight at me for 2 seconds, then suddenly laughed. So Harper's actually jealous? I almost choked on the takoyaki William bought for me last night. Matthew's buddies jumped in, ribbing him too. Cut it out, Harper. Keep acting this high and mighty, and you'll be the one crying later. Whatever. Look at her pretending. She's probably laughing on the inside. Seriously jealous of Matthew. He's never been single for long. I couldn't help but snort, a cold shiver running through me. Yeah. Matthew's never been single. When he and Emily fight or break up, Harper jumps in like some clueless backup plan. She's been through hell in that relationship. And then Emily resents her even more. In the end, they get their happy ending, while Harper ends up dying in a mental hospital. Back then, with his wife and little kid in his arms, did Matthew ever shed a single tear for Harper? Matthew. I called his name calmly. We're all adults now. Can't you just stop acting like such a childish idiot? Harper. Matthew was about to say something when the private room door swung open. It was Emily who walked in. As soon as she stepped inside, her eyes locked onto Matthew and instantly welled up with tears. Matthew, however, stayed seated. Even his sharp, elegant features carried a faint, gentle smile. Harper, he said softly, I remember you always loved the fish here. I ordered it specially for you. What else would you like? I'll have the waiter bring more dishes. He didn't even glance at Emily, his eyes only on me, soft and warm. I felt utterly sickened and ridiculous. I didn't even feel like saying another word. I stood up to leave. But just then, William suddenly pushed the door open. The instant our eyes met, I quickly looked away. Yet my heart began to race faster and faster. It filled up with countless little bubbles of sweetness. He'd said he wasn't coming to join the fun in the first place. Honestly, I didn't want to be here either. My best friend dragged me along whether I wanted to or not. She's planning to confess her feelings to the guy she likes tonight. Alone. She just didn't have the guts. She begged me to go with her. But I never expected William would show up too. He usually hates this kind of scene the most. I watched him sit down across from me. My heart was racing like a deer caught in headlights. But I couldn't look at him too long. I was scared someone might notice something was off. William, Emily, who had been sitting in the corner with red eyes, suddenly stood up. She walked straight over to where William was sitting. I need to ask you something. Is now a good time? As she spoke, Emily casually sat down on the chair beside him. But before she even finished settling in, William stood up right away and moved to a different seat. Not really. He shot Emily a cold glance. My girlfriend wouldn't like it. The whole room erupted in chatter. Emily stared, stunned. William, you're dating someone. Is she from our class or school? How come I've never heard of this before? Yeah, who is she? Really? I'm dying to know what kind of girl William would go for. My best friend clutched my hand so hard I thought she might scream. Harper. William was absolutely hot just now. I couldn't stop laughing at Emily's face when she got shut down. But seriously, who is she? William seems like such a strong guy. His girlfriend must be living the good life. I'm gonna burst from envy, seriously. I wish I were that girl. My face turned red in a flash, and I quickly covered my friend's mouth. Shh, Loluo. Keep it down. Wait, Harper, why are you so red? You not feeling sick? Are you? I fumbled my way toward the door. Just feel a bit stuffy. I'm gonna hit the restroom. Should I come with you? No thanks. I hurried over to the door. As I reached for the doorknob, I could have sworn William's eyes were on my back. Then I heard his voice. She's from our school. She's shy and very quiet. I didn't want to scare her, so I kept it private. Do we know each other? Emily pressed on. She must be gorgeous, right? Amazing figure. With your taste, you probably wouldn't even notice an average girl. Someone chimed in. Is she even hotter than our class beauty? Emily blushed and said, don't make things up. Okay. She's definitely way prettier than me. As the door closed, I heard William give a quiet reply. That's right. She really is prettier than you. The laughter died down instantly, replaced by an awkward silence. By the time I stepped out of the restroom, William was already waiting outside. I knew he'd come looking for me, but seeing him there still made my heart soar with joy. Come with me. William took my hand and led me down the far end of the hallway. Where are we going? A gentle tug on my hand pulled me right into his side. William's long fingers slid around my waist. I missed you. We just saw each other last night. One day is too long. I couldn't help but bite my lip, smiling. How much did you miss me? You'll find out soon enough. Neither of us noticed that a classmate had just gone to the restroom right behind us. He happened to catch our silhouettes turning the corner. Then he sprinted back to the private room, saying, I think I just saw William and his girlfriend. The balcony was bursting with flowers. It was the height of summer, and in the night air, flowers bloomed in vibrant splendor. William sat on the chair, and I knelt beside his legs, slowly settling down, just like that night in the classroom. William, did you used to stare at my photos like that secretly? You mean in the classroom or somewhere else? Both count. William lowered his eyes, his throat moving slightly. Every day. Every day. I was stunned. William, are you sure you can handle it? He let out a quiet chuckle and guided my hand down. What do you think? It was like an endless, flat desert suddenly giving rise to a mirage. Yet it was just one lone building, standing proudly tall. My fingertips burned and trembled as I tried hard to pull back. But he held me tighter. Harper, are you really underestimating your man? I didn't mean to. William, I'm scared. Please let go of my hand first. Scared of what? Of it. I answered honestly, keeping my voice soft and obedient. Even though I'd read plenty of romantic novels before, and secretly checked out a few risque stories too. But honestly, when I got pulled into this book, I was only 18. I had zero experience to speak of. William laughed at me. He let go of my hand and pulled me right back into his arms. Looking up, he kissed me hard. His voice rough as he whispered, Harper, you're gonna fall head over heels for this. Like hell I will. My face was burning, so hot it felt like it might catch fire. William gently took hold of the back of my neck, guiding me closer to him. The deeper he kissed me, the hotter my face got. My body felt like melting wax, about to dissolve. I was ready to melt right into his arms. Harper. William was breathing heavily, gently pushing me back. My gaze was dazed, a little stunned and confused. But he'd already lifted me and settled me onto a chair beside him. He grabbed his cigarette pack, stood up, and said in a rough voice, I'm gonna go smoke. I glanced at something over there and couldn't help but cover my mouth to stifle a laugh. William shook his head and gave me a light tap on the forehead. Harper, you're gonna pay for this. Pay for what? Matthew's voice suddenly came from the balcony doorway. Pingjing, you're hiding out here again. Matthew's voice came closer quickly. I jumped a little, instinctively turning to look at William. He gave me a reassuring glance. I grabbed the cigarette pack and walked over. Just having a smoke here. Matthew wasn't buying it. Did you bring your girlfriend along? Pingjing. I get that you'd keep things from others. But with me? Lying about this. That's not cool. Matthew's aunt had married someone in Beijing. She was loosely connected to the Gu family through a complicated web of relations. His aunt knew how to play the game. She'd managed to get close to Isabella and has been keeping in touch ever since. When William transferred in, Matthew's aunt had specifically told him to make sure to get along well with William. Matthew started moving toward me. William stepped in front of him and said, "Matthew, she's shy, don't scare her." The night was dark and heavy, but his voice was even colder. Matthew hesitated for a moment and stopped in his tracks. Go back first. I still need to stay here with her for a bit. But Matthew didn't leave. Instead he asked, "Hey Pingjing, have you seen Harper? That girl, she vanished in an instant." William's voice was calm. "I saw her, she went downstairs." "Left?" "Probably." Matthew sounded a bit nervous. "All right, then I'll go find her." But as he walked, he pulled out his phone. A few seconds later, my phone suddenly rang. Matthew's steps came to an abrupt stop. This ringtone was the one Harper had set in the book. It was also her absolute favorite song. Matthew finally came to his senses. "Harper." He turned and stood still, his gaze fixed on the distant depths of blooming flowers. I pulled my phone from my bag and ended the call. I took a deep breath and slowly rose to my feet. The moment he saw me, the emotions in Matthew's eyes were intense and mixed. There was disappointment, anger, jealousy, and a cold, mocking sneer. But more than anything, it was sheer disbelief. That night at Pingjing, the girl in the classroom, it was you, wasn't it? I didn't deny it. It was me. Matthew suddenly slammed his phone down hard. "Harper, that's why you've been ignoring me all along. So you hooked up with someone richer after all. Are you really that desperate? Just because someone's rich, you throw yourself at them? Matthew, try saying one more word about her. Just try." William grabbed him by the collar and shoved him hard against the balcony railing. He was strong. Matthew's whole body leaned out over the edge, hanging in midair. "William." I was so scared he'd do something reckless, my voice trembling. William didn't reply. He just looked down at Matthew with cold eyes. "Harper's my girlfriend. You're talking about her, that's like talking about me. William, I'd suggest you think twice before messing with someone under my protection. Know your own limits next time." He finally let go. All at once, Matthew gasped for air and grabbed the railing to steady himself. His face was pale with shock. William gave a cold, expressionless laugh. "Useless." Matthew clenched his teeth so hard it hurt. His face was pale as he watched William walk toward me. But he still didn't dare say another word. "Harper, let's go." William took my hand in his. As we passed by Matthew, I glanced at him instinctively, but his eyes froze me dark, sharp, full of venom. His gaze was as cold and venomous as if it had been poisoned. It sent a chill down my spine. On the way back, I couldn't shake off a lingering sense of unease. William pulled over halfway through the drive. "Harper, what's wrong?" He looked at me, his eyes filled with concern. I didn't know how to explain it. Matthew's the main character in this story. After all, the lead male role is always supposed to be someone blessed with incredible luck. Even though William's background is way better than Matthew's now. Aren't male leads in novels always the ones who end up defeating opponents who were way stronger than them from the start? What if Matthew ends up hating William because of this? William doesn't have a proper ending in the story. I can't even bring myself to think about what his final fate might be. William. I'm kind of scared. Scared of what? I'm afraid I'll drag him into trouble. I'm scared he'll suffer some terrible fate because of me. I'm most afraid that in the end, his fate will be just as tragic as Harper's in the book. I suddenly felt overwhelming regret. Regretting that I'd ever gotten involved with him. Can we just stay apart for now? Harper. My wrist was suddenly caught in his grip. Inside the closed car. Our breaths tangled together. At this close distance. He would have kissed me long ago if it were before. But now, his eyes were cold and sharp, like they were trying to see right through me. Why would we split up? Because of Matthew, isn't it? You still have feelings for him, don't you? You're still thinking about him, aren't you? No, it's not like that. Then why did you break up with me? William suddenly grabbed my jaw, lifting my face upward. He looked down at me, his thin lips curling slightly. Harper, what else are you trying to fake me with? How much longer are you going to play games? No, William, I'm not lying to you. I really don't like him. I haven't for a long time. Don't like him? Why would you break up with me just because he glanced back? William. His fingers squeezed hard, and tears spilled out before I could even stop them. I'm just worried about you. Worried about me? Matthew's got a really dark mind. He doesn't like me, but he still keeps me on the hook and won't let me even look at someone else. I'm afraid he'll end up resenting you and take it out on you. The moment I said those words, the tension in William's body seemed to melt away. The hostility that had been radiating off William seemed to melt away almost instantly. His fingers relaxed, his fingertips gently rubbing the faint red mark on my jawline. Harper, how much do you really not trust me? William smirked, utterly confident. Don't even mention Matthew. Not one of the 10-song families could catch my eye. But you're worried about me, Harper. William lowered his head until our foreheads touched. His sharp nose brushed lightly against mine. Warm and intimate. I'm so happy. Feels amazing. Better than the time I stared at your photo that night. Even better. William. I couldn't help but bite his lip. How come he always has to bring up that moment? No matter what we're talking about? Anyway, don't ever say we're breaking up, Harper. Unless you don't like me anymore. Summer's almost over. I'll be heading off to college in Beijing soon. 3 days ago, William's mother wasn't feeling well, so he went back to Beijing first. We had agreed he'd come pick me up at the airport himself. But just as I was getting ready to leave, someone suddenly showed up to find me. Romance novels are always full of this kind of scene. The guy's mom shows up gracefully in front of the girl, hands her a huge check, telling her to stay away from her son. And the girl always ends up leaving in pain after overthinking it all, thinking she's doing what's best for the guy. But now, this exact same situation is happening to me. The thing is, William's mom never even showed up in person. I'm just too small and insignificant to warrant her showing up in person. Isabella only sent one of her own housekeepers over. The housekeeper's presence was already beyond anything we commoners could imagine. Harper, there's something I'd like you to take a look at first. The elegant and poised middle-aged woman sitting across from me passed the tablet over to me. Inside were several video clips. My biological father, Oliver, went to Beijing a week ago. He shamelessly claimed he was the future son-in-law of the Gu family. He went to the Gu family asking for investment and seeking cooperation. Harper, we're giving that project to you, just because of our young master's word. But the Gu family can't afford to be associated with someone like him. The Gu family wouldn't accept such a match as in-laws. Not ever. I was trembling all over. It felt like I'd been dropped into an icy abyss. The blood in my veins turned to ice. Matthew is the one who told Oliver about me and William. That's why Oliver just charged straight to Beijing without thinking twice. I never thought Oliver could be so shameless. He's not exactly broke and desperate. Why would he act this shamelessly, chasing after the Gu family like that? Harper, we both know about social matching and proper matchings. Our young master is the only child from both the Gu family and the Zhou family. He's been cherished like a treasure since he was little by his elders at home. But the responsibilities on his shoulders are heavier than those of an ordinary child. If it weren't for you, young Master Pingjing would have already gone abroad to study with his childhood fiancé. Now that this mess has happened, everyone in the family is furious. But our mistress specifically instructed us You're the one he likes. So you mustn't be treated poorly. And you mustn't be hurt. But young Master Pingjing has broken his elders' hearts and also hurt his fiancée's feelings. He can't go unpunished. We hope Harper can figure this out on her own and make a choice that works for both young Master Pingjing and you. The calmer and more polite she was, the more it felt like my heart was being torn apart. If they had humiliated me, shouted at me, or threatened me, I might have held on with everything I had until the very end. But instead, they just laid out all the consequences and left it up to me to decide. They didn't so much as touch a single hair on my head, but they punished William. It was only now that I finally understood why heroines in novels often end up walking away, giving up. It was like two mothers fighting over a single child. The biological mother, afraid of hurting the child, would always be the first to let go. Please tell me how William is now. Is he okay? The young master from Pingjing only received family punishment and is resting in bed for recovery. There's no serious injury. My tears fell freely, pouring down like a broken string of beads. She let out a soft sigh and handed me a tissue. Harper, I know how hard this choice must be. But you do love him deeply, don't you? Isn't loving someone about thinking of them, wanting them to get better and stronger? She wasn't wrong. Love is about letting go, but it can also be selfish at the same time. Can I meet him just once? She shook her head. No, just give me a little more time. Please. Harper, you don't have any more time left. You know your father has put the Gu family in a tough spot. The Gu family's reputation, built over 100 years, can't be ruined like this. I know exactly what's at stake. As long as I'm still Oliver's daughter, as long as I'm still with William, Oliver would never pass up such a chance to climb the social ladder. I went after William in the first place. First, because I liked him. Second, out of my own selfish reasons. I just wanted to escape the tragic fate that awaited Harper in the book. To run away from the Sioux family. And the revenge from Emily and her mother. Not to mention Matthew. William was clearly the best choice. But now I regret it. I shouldn't have dragged William and the Gu family into this mess. What should I do? Make him lose interest in you. Harper. Suddenly, I remembered William's last words to me that day. Harper, unless you don't like me. I guess when someone's truly heartbroken and miserable, their heart really does feel like it's shattered. I held back my tears and gave her a smile. I understand now. But I have one condition. Harper, please go ahead. By the time all the paperwork for studying abroad was finalized, something suddenly came up with the Sioux family. Just as Emily and her mother were about to be brought back to the Sioux family to reclaim their rightful place, the shocking truth about Emily's mother, her affair that broke up a marriage, and how she drove the original wife to death from stress, spread like wildfire throughout the entire city. At that very time, Oliver had a new romantic interest in Beijing. Someone glamorous and captivating. This new woman was not only younger than Emily's mother, but also far more cunning and skilled at getting what she wanted. She quickly had Oliver completely under her spell. He had completely forgotten about Emily's mother. With her reputation ruined and nowhere left to turn, Oliver still failed to keep his promise to bring her and Emily back to the Sioux family. She even started shouting she'd jump off the building. But Oliver just showed up for a brief moment and gave her some casual words of advice. Then he left with his new lover, walking off proudly. As soon as he was gone, the woman lost control and jumped from the building. She didn't die, but ended up a permanent vegetable. Oliver probably did it out of respect for Emily, his real daughter. He gave the mother and daughter a sum of money and never showed up again after that. But things didn't stay good for long. Oliver, eager to impress his new lover, tried to prove himself. He took all sorts of performance-enhancing drugs. Then, right on his lover's bed, he suffered a stroke and ended up paralyzed on one side. From then on, Emily remained an illegitimate daughter no one would acknowledge. She never went back to the Sioux family to claim her rightful place. So it was up to me, the only daughter, to inherit everything Oliver had. Emily came after me more than once, shamelessly trying to cause trouble. But she never even made it to my doorstep. My security guards kicked her out before she could get close. I sold off every last bit of the Sue family's business holdings. I donated half of the remaining assets to a charity fund for women and children. The other half was handed over to a professional financial manager to handle on my behalf. Before I left the country, I paid a visit to my mother's grave. She was Harper's biological mother, though she had nothing to do with me back then. But now, I'm the one inhabiting Harper's body and all of her life. So naturally, she's become my mother too. I knelt down in front of the grave and bowed 3 times. Then I laid out her favorite flowers, filling the entire cemetery. Thought, down in the afterlife, this poor woman could finally rest in peace. And her daughter, whom she was most worried about, would now strive to make my life better and better. I'd never let myself fall into that tragic fate again. Matthew came looking for me several times. He said he'd realized all along he had feelings for me. He still wanted to be with me. He even wanted to go abroad together to study. And he said Emily had turned so annoying lately, like she'd lost her mind. Harper, the Gu family's status is just too high. Even if William really likes you, he'll still give in when it comes to interests. But I'm different. We've known each other since childhood, real childhood friends, through and through. You're all alone now. And you inherited twice the fortune from your parents. How many eyes are watching you? If you stay with me, at least I and the Song family will keep you safe. I didn't say a word until he said that. Then I let out a mocking laugh. Matthew, if I'm not mistaken, you chose Emily before. It was because Oliver was bringing her back and spoiling her, so the Sue family's fortune would end up in her hands. If you married her, the Sue family's fortune would end up in your hands. And that way, you could climb even higher. I remembered how their story ended in the book. After Matthew married Emily, he spoiled her like a little princess. The Sue family and Song family's businesses were all managed by him. And Emily, she just spent her days arranging flowers, sipping tea, shopping, and having kids. That's where the story ended. Princess and prince lived happily ever after. But in real life, Emily would be turned into a useless nobody. And how long could Matthew keep loving her? Now that he's on top of the world? Now Emily's in such a sorry state. All of the Sue family's businesses are now in my hands. Matthew turns around and says he loves me. He really is a natural at preying on broken women. Matthew frowns and says, Harper, you're underestimating me. I've never cared about climbing the ladder using women. And besides, our Song family isn't any worse off than your Sue family. I'm only doing this out of old feelings. I don't want you to get hurt later. I stare at Matthew's face, all fake sincerity and longing. I couldn't help but wonder, why on earth was this guy the male lead in the story? Then again, in a novel that's both wild and borderline inappropriate, even the most outlandish character arcs aren't surprising. Matthew, I don't need your pity. I really don't. And I don't need you either. I already told you, I've stopped liking you a long time ago. Are you still holding on to William? He's already engaged to someone from a matching family. Harper, what do you even think you have to offer against a third-generation heiress for a man like that? I didn't say anything. That day, I had the butler deliver a letter to William. Just one sentence on the letter. William, I don't like you anymore. Truth is, only William and I knew what happened that night. After William said those words that evening, I replied, William, if one day I ever tell you this, then don't believe me. And please, never forget to find me. Love is letting go, truly giving freedom. But love can also be selfish, fighting with everything you've got just to stay together. The second year after I went abroad to study, on my 20th birthday, when I was celebrating with friends, Matthew suddenly appeared in front of me. He was dressed neatly, holding a bouquet of roses. His eyes, gazing at me, were so full of longing they almost pulled me in. My friends, clueless about what was going on, started cheering and teasing. But I didn't even glance at him. I just turned and walked away. Matthew followed me right out after me. He wouldn't let up. Not even when I reached my car. I spotted a police officer nearby and was about to shout for help. But on that long street in a foreign country, through the faint mist, a figure both familiar and strange suddenly appeared. It just burst into my sight, and Matthew was dragged by a few men who looked like bodyguards toward a car on the side. The car sped off right away. It was the first time I'd ever seen William in a formal suit. A full black designer suit, paired with a sleek black coat. It didn't look the least bit heavy on him. If anything, it only made his elegance and good looks even more striking. The Chinese-American girl beside me gripped my hand and whispered in shock, "Oh my gosh, Harper. That guy is absolutely stunning. His legs are longer than my entire life. Harper, is he looking this way? Is he actually coming over? Is he really not a celebrity or something?" I gave a soft shake of my head, feeling completely lost in the misty air of London. I was so lightheaded I could barely stay on my feet. "No, he's not a celebrity. Then who is he? Do you know him?" "I do. He's the one I like. He's also my boyfriend." "Harper." William stopped in his tracks. He reached out to me. "Come here." I felt like I was walking on cotton. My steps were light and unsteady. I had a few drinks tonight. Maybe it was the alcohol doing that. My palms were hot, and so was my face. When William took my hand and pulled me into his arms, I caught that familiar crisp with scent again. Time seemed to rewind back to that summer, to that classroom. I tilted my face up against him and asked, "William, do you still look at my photos from time to time?" He gave a small, quiet smile. "Every single day. Do you think you can handle it?" "Not really. That's why I came looking for you." "Harper, why didn't you come sooner?" My vision blurred. I didn't even notice when it happened. William leaned down and kissed me. "Because I didn't want you to suffer any more just by being with me." So for over a year, he's been fighting against the Gu family and the Zhou family. Luckily, he didn't have to wait too long. William knew his only chance came from the fact that his family truly loved him. Because they loved him, they finally chose to give in. When he went to see her, Isabella asked him, "Is it really just her you can't live without?" He hugged his mother and simply said, "You and Dad have always taught me that way since I was little." Isabella broke down in tears right away. She and her husband had loved each other deeply all their lives, each unwaveringly devoted to the other, choosing one another without hesitation. At that moment, she finally let go, accepting it completely and giving her blessing. William brought me back to his house in London. The house had been under renovation ever since the very first day I arrived for my studies. Our master bedroom faced a small garden outside the window. William came out of the bathroom and went to look for me on the balcony. He had just sat down on the sofa beside me. I straddled his lap just like I had that night in the classroom. "William, I'm right here in your arms now. You don't have to keep looking at that photo anymore." His gaze slid down slowly, finally settling on my bare legs. I was wearing that same short skirt from that night. As I straddled him, my whole leg was exposed. It happened in an instant. I could almost see that towering, solitary mirage in the desert again. He had just loosely tied a towel around his waist. And what could such a thin towel possibly hide? "Harper." William's hand settled on the small of my back, pressing down gently but firmly. I fell right into his arms. "Even if you tried to get off me now, it's too late." He held the back of my neck, not letting me move an inch backward. The kiss was deep. So deep I started to worry about how much wilder William might get next. And he actually proved my suspicion, just as I feared. "William, I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Of that." William took my hand. "Harper, I told you, you're gonna love it." This was probably the first time William had ever lied to me. The size was just way too off. It hurt so much. I couldn't help but cry. But he wasn't entirely lying, either. Because by the third night, I think I actually started to kind of like it. "Harper, do you like it?" I was so lost in the kiss I could only nod frantically beneath him. "You like it? Then can we do this every day?" "Okay." I was so breathless I could barely get out a word. "Okay." The next time around, William grabbed my waist and guided me to sit on his lap. That night, I was still wearing that school skirt, but that was all I had on. William was really something else. I didn't fully believe him when he said, every day, until now. He seemed to never get tired, like he'd never grow bored, no matter what. Finally, dawn was just starting to break. I drifted off to sleep, drowsy in his arms. Just before I fell asleep, I asked him, William, when did you start liking me? The first day I transferred. Why did you like me? Though, I can't really explain it. The very first time I saw you, I just felt like we'd met before. It was like I'd known you in a past life. Like this lifetime. I was just meant to find you. I froze for a second, but then I smiled, letting go of the moment. I feel the same way. William, I don't want another life. And I don't care about rebirth or reincarnation either. I nuzzled into his arms and settled into the most comfortable position. I just want this life. Today's wine. Today we drink. Okay, then let's just live for this life. Screw all those 1,000-year cycles of birth and death. I'm only making